Hello, can I just welcome everyone to this General Licensing Subcommittee, please? The first thing that we have to do is nominations of the Chair. Thank you. Councillor Heathergrave, I'll nominate you as Chair then. Thank you. Could I just ask the panel to introduce themselves now, please?
Good afternoon. I'm Councillor Paul Heathergrave. I'm a Vice Chair of the Taxi and Licensing Committee or General Licensing Subcommittees, and I'm the Councillor for Abbey Ward.
Good afternoon. I'm Councillor Pete Field.
Hello, I'm Councillor Rob Cooper. I'm a member of the Licensing Committee and I'm also a Councillor for Chaddesden Ward.
Could I ask the officers from Legal to introduce themselves?
Mr Desser, I'm the Solicitor of the Council and I'm here as an advisory role. I'm also joined by Mr Rees-Morgans, who's here purely observing.
And the colleagues from Licensing?
Hello, good afternoon. I'm Anne Walker. I'm representing the licensing team today. With me is Aaron Verdi, who is our apprentice in the licensing team. He's just joined us. He's here for experience. Thank you.
I'm Jackie Waring. I'm the Appeals Officer. If I could just ask the police to introduce themselves, please.
Good afternoon. I'm PC Gemma Williamson from a Police Licence and Enforcement Officer for Derbyshire Constabulary.
And now you can hear me.
And the applicant, please.
My name is Baldev Singh Puni. I'm a DPS at Indy Community Centre.
Thank you, everyone, and welcome to the meeting. Just procedurally, because my hearing's not brilliant, can you just make sure you're nice and loud using your mic, because that's really helpful to me. We're here to consider the receipt and objection notice in respect of temporary event notice at the Indian Community Centre, Rawdon Street, Derby. And I think we all understand fully the reason for the meeting. I hope to goodness we do. Yep. Have either party any additional documents or information to the hearing that you'd like to present now?
Yes. I would like to present the receipts from our security people and the emails we have sent and received.
Right, so I think what we need to do is make that sure that's shared with everyone before we continue the meeting.
I've just taken these off the applicant and I will bring them up to Chair for you to have a look at to see whether you want to admit them or not. Okay.
Chair, can I ask for yourself why these weren't presented to us before the meeting? I believe there's been plenty of time for these to be submitted. There seems to be quite a lot of information there. I think I made my point clear why they weren't submitted in due time.
Sincere apologies, but I thought you might need them. I don't. It isn't necessary, but I thought you might have a look at them. It might help you in when I say something later on.
Chair, you might want to clarify whether the police have had sight of those documentations or whether they formally oppose or have any objection to them going in at this point, and if so, on what basis?
Would you like to respond to that?
Yes, I have no issue with them being submitted late because I'd rather Mr Pooney have adequate time to submit his side of the story. So we don't have an objection as long as it's okay with you.
Right, so I think the right thing to do is then get these copied and shared with everyone.
Okay, I'll just call for an adjournment while I go and copy the papers then. Thank you.
Yeah, so we'll adjourn until we all have every piece of relevant documentation in front of us. Thank you. Welcome back, everyone. Can I just confirm that all relevant parties have received copies of the additional documents? Yep.
Yeah, from the police we have. Thank you.
We're actually at point 2 in the agenda, which is apologies. Are there any apologies? I don't expect any.
No, no apologies.
Yeah. And item 3, late items to be introduced by the chair. I have no late items. And we come now to declarations of interest. Councillor Cooper.
Thank you, Chair. I have a non-pecuniary interest to declare in that I know of an individual who was named in a late submission of documentation, Mr. Balbir Singh Sandhu, who is a Labour councillor. I also know of Mr. Sandhu. He is also the chair, Labour chair, of the Normanton Neighbourhood Board. He is also the Labour chair of Personnel Committee. He is a Labour member of the Community Scrutiny Committee, and Councillor Balbir Singh Sandhu, or Mr. Sandhu, is the former Vice Chair of Licensing between 2015 and 2021.
Councillor Peatfield.
Thank you, Chair. I declare a non-pecuniary interest as I know of Balbir Sandhu as a fellow councillor.
And I similarly declare a non-pecuniary interest and recognise that I am a fellow councillor on the Labour group with Mr. Sandhu, who has not come along today, but is mentioned in paperwork. Right, so we now go through the procedure. And the first thing we do is I will ask the licensing officer to present their report and outline the general terms of the matter to be considered.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. A temporary event notice has been received by Derby City Council's licensing team from Mr. Baldev Singh Puni in respect of the Indian Community Centre, Rawdon Street, Derby, DE236QR. A copy of the temporary event notice is attached at Appendix 1 in the bundle. The sale by retail of alcohol or the provision of regulated entertainment and the provision of late night refreshment must be licensed under the Licensing Act 2003. Where no licence or authorisation exists, any individual aged 18 or over, subject to specific criteria being met, can issue a temporary event notice to the licensing authority. Only the police and the council's environmental protection team may object to a temporary event notice on 2 licensing objectives. These are the prevention of crime and disorder or the prevention of public nuisance. An objection in relation to this particular temporary event notice has been received from Derbyshire Constabulary and hence attendance at committee today. The objection notice from the police was received on the 26th of October 2021 and a copy is attached at Appendix 2. The licensable activities covered by the temporary event notice received is for the provision of regulated entertainment starting on the 5th of November 2021 at 2300 hours, going through to the 6th of November 2021 at 0300 hours. A location plan of the premises is attached at Appendix 3. And a copy of the existing premises licence is attached at Appendix 4. The committee is obliged to determine this objection notice with a view to promoting the 2 licensing objectives. In making its decision, the committee is also obliged to have regard to national guidance issued under Section 182 of the Licensing Act 2003, the Council's own licensing policy, and the Human Rights Act 1998. The options open to committee this afternoon are to uphold the objection notice received and serve a counter notice on the notifying individual, impose one or more of the existing licence conditions on the temporary event notice if it considers it appropriate for the promotion of the licensing objectives, or to reject the objection notice received. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. So I now, are there any questions of the licensing officer in terms of what she just presented? No? Thank you. Do councillors wish to ask any questions of the licensing officer? Thank you. Right, we then go to the responsible authority who are making representations, which are the constabulary, the Derbyshire Constabulary, and to outline the general terms of their representation.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for holding this hearing for us today. The outline of our objection are as follows. On Thursday, the 21st of October 2021, the police received an application for a temporary event notice for the premises in the Indian Community Centre, Rawdon Street, Derby. The 10 submitted was for a baby christening celebration, with the applicant being Mr. Baldev Singh Pooney. The 10 request authorisation to allow the provision of regulated entertainment between the hours of 11 p.m. on the 5th of the 11th 21 and 0300 hours on the 6th of the 11th 21. The Indian Community Centre already holds a premises licence allowing the sale of alcohol and regulated entertainment 7 days a week until 2300 hours, and the designated premises supervisor is the applicant, Mr. Pooney. Prior to this 10, there was a previous 10 requested on the 11th of the 9th 21 at the premises for a musical event until 0300 hours. The 10 was authorised, and during this event there was an incident reported to the police at 0528 hours, which was 2.5 hours post the temporary event notice. The report to the police was as follows. There were 10 people fighting at the location. The premises were being used for a wedding venue which had gone wrong with parties falling out. 2 persons were arrested at the location for assault, and it was noted that there were large quantities of alcohol at the premises on the table, which were bottles of spirits laid out. I've looked into this incident and the crime report, which states that when the police attended, there were several males hanging around the gates of the premises. The gates were locked and the males appeared intoxicated. Due to the gates being locked, the police couldn't get in and people couldn't get out. When the gate was eventually opened, the 2 groups came together and there was a disturbance, and this resulted in 1 person being punched in the head and 1 person being kicked in the head, leading to the 2 arrests and interviews. During the interviews, the event was described as a drunken party which got out of control and escalated to physical violence. It became apparent during the investigation that the premises had been hired out, and there was an apparent lack of control by the owners of the premises, who appeared to not be present for most of the event. The 10 requested was for regulated entertainment only, but however, officers observed multiple bottles of spirits on the table at the event being consumed by partygoers, and the level of intoxication was the probable cause of the incident. The police were called at 0528 hours, with the 10 finishing at 0300 hours, on a street which is mainly made up of residential properties. We were unable to prove that any unlicensable activities were taking place after 0300 hours, but the balance of probability is that this was likely. Police have had meetings with the designated premises supervisor and the applicant to discuss the concerns after this incident. It was clear from the meeting that there appeared to be a lack of control at the premises for late night events. The management and the fact that this was already a licensed premises, there was a requirement for them to promote the licensing objectives. A further late 10 was requested on the 9th of the 10th 21, which was for a musical event for 250 people. This was not just a musical event, but a party with alcohol on a non-licensed basis. This was objected to by PC Fowler, as there was a likelihood of crime and disorder to emanate from the premises during the early hours of the morning. A further 10 was requested on the 17th of October 21 for a wedding until 0300 hours, the sale of alcohol was included in this temporary event notice. As it was for a wedding, the police did not object to this 10. However, post-event, the police received a noise complaint from local residents about the centre, reporting that there were regular, noisy late-night events at the premises. PC Fowler contacted the Indian Community Centre and arranged a meeting about our concerns, and that the premises doesn't appear to be well managed for late-night events. The fact that events going ahead without any conditions were a concern of the police, and we were not satisfied that the licensing objectives would be promoted without suitable conditions. PC Fowler then had discussions with the applicant about a minor variation to the licence to allow suitable conditions to be transferred on to future temporary event notices in light of recent events. A further meeting was arranged, however, a further 10 has been submitted for another late night event, which is the current event that we're discussing today. As nothing has been resolved with the concerns of the police, this has resulted in my objection. There are concerns about the event being a christening celebration, and I appreciate that the protection of children from harm is not one of the licensing objectives we can discuss. However, I would argue this would overlap with crime and disorder. It implies that children will be present at the event, and as it's being hosted by someone different than the applicant, the police cannot be satisfied that the licensing objectives will be promoted and that children will be protected at the event from any particular harm that may come to them. As there has already been a 10 at the premises which has resulted in crime and disorder, the police feel that with any 10s at the current time, the licensing objectives are likely to be undermined. The 182 guidance states that the system of permitted temporary events, temporary activities is intended as a light touch approach. The police, as a responsible authority, would suggest that a licence running until 0300 hours for any licensed activities would require suitable conditions which can only be enforced by a premises licence. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this representation, and I welcome any questions.
Thank you, Officer. I'll now ask councillors if they have any questions for the officer.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, PC Williamson. Thank you for giving the information that you've given and having read your letter, Appendix 2, written on the 26th of 10th, 2021. May I ask, it seems to me that one of the issues, well, probably the main issue that you've discussed there is this 10-person brawl. Could you walk us and talk us through from your recollections or your understanding of that incident, just a little bit more understanding for us as local councillors that as councillors that weren't present, and was anyone convicted of any offence that may have happened?
Yes, not a problem at all. I did submit the incident report and the crime report just for your perusal, if you so wish. The gist of the event is there was a wedding at the centre which was hired out by somebody else other than the designated premises supervisor. As far as we're aware, it went on until the very late hours of the morning, far later than the actual temporary event notice permitted. They'd bought their own alcohol, which had led to no control at all over the consumption, which was why both the people arrested were extremely intoxicated. From what we gather, there had already been an incident inside, which we never really got the full facts of, but most of the assault was witnessed by the police officers. So when the police officers have arrived, the gate to the actual premises is locked, so the police can see disorder going on inside but can't actually get to it. The key holder has then been located, managed to open the gate. As that's happened, both parties outside and inside have come together, and that's led to, there's basically not enough officers there to control what's going on. One person's been punched, someone else has been kicked, leading to the arrests. I can confirm that one of the offenders received a fixed penalty notice for disorder, and the other one received a caution, as I think they both accepted their part in the incident. And that was, unless there's anything else you wish to know, that was the circumstances.
Thank you, Peter Wilson. It sounds like a very awful event. I don't know how much you know about it, but were the Indian Community Centre representatives and the designated premises supervisor, were they cooperative? It sounded to me that those incidents that may have happened and occurred inside the premises on that evening that you never got to the bottom of because there was no cooperation. That's how it seemed from your description. Can you just clear up that? Were they cooperative then and even up to now?
Yeah, just to confirm, I'm not saying that they weren't cooperative with us post-incident. I think the main concern of the police is the fact that on the night of the event, there may have been a representative there at some point, but they were certainly not there later on, which kind of led to the incident getting out of control. It was a representative from the Indian Community Centre that reported the incident, which was 5:30 in the morning. So they were there, but there was a big amount of time when there was nobody present. And I think that's our concern, that these late night events need some control. And I appreciate alcohol was not part of that temporary event notice. However, it was a licensed event and alcohol was readily available. So our concern is that who is in control, and obviously it's a residential area, and this is leading to an impact on the wider community.
Sorry, Chair, I just got a couple more things on the letter. So in the letter it discusses about a meeting that was held on the 8th to the 8th of the 10th, 2021. Has there been a further meeting since then to discuss a response from the committee and the representatives of the Indian Community Centre on Rawdon Street? And also as well, if I may ask as well, a bit higher up on the second page, it says there, in taking into view what you've already said, it appears to be the case that when the events are taking place under TENS, the designated premises supervisor and representatives from the Indian Community Centre have little or no control of the events. It sounds like you're sticking with those words. Is that something that as well that they were in the letter, and you still feel that way as well?
Yes. I wasn't actually in any meetings prior to this objection, but I am going to pass over to PC Fowler in a minute, who can shed more light on that. What I will touch upon is I don't think Mr Pooney in previous meetings has contested the fact that there wasn't as much control. He may now have put things in place. However, prior to these incidents, we don't think there was enough control in place at the Indian Community Centre, which has probably led to these incidents taking place. So I'll just pass over to PC Fowler now to give his version.
As PC Williamson has said, I was involved in the original the original objection to the first late temporary event notice, and then in meetings thereafter. And the Indian Community Centre has been nothing but obliging about that and cooperative with the police. But those meetings are ongoing in trying to get to a place where we can have some conditions on the licence so that temporary event notices can go ahead with a little bit more control. And we're in the middle of those still, and this temporary event notices come in between those meetings as such. We were due to have a meeting last Wednesday, but unfortunately I've been off sick last week with COVID, which is now, I've done my isolation period, so I'm fine to be here, I'd hasten to add. So unfortunately I wasn't able to attend the meeting last week, in which I would hope we would have got to the bottom of a variation on the licence so we can go forward. Unfortunately, this temporary event notice has come in between those times, and as such, we've still not got to the bottom of any issues. But I'd like to say that the Indian Community Centre are cooperating with us so far. It's just that this has almost come at the wrong time, I would suggest. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Could you just clarify the position of the key holder when you identified who they were? Was it a member of the party, or was it a member of the community centre?
The information we've received from the crime report, it was a member of the Indian Community Centre who I had assumed had come to lock up the premises, assuming nobody was there.
Thank you.
Thank you, fellow councillors, for those questions. It really covered the areas I want to have clarification over. There is the issue that you've risen about in your letter. You think there are 3 breaches of the 4 things, and you mention as well the protection of children from harm, which you're making an assumption, aren't you, that because it's a christening there would be at least 1 infant there, apart from that, which is a reasonable assumption given the fact that it's a christening, are there any other concerns you'd like to raise on that? Have there been any previous issues where children have been at present or showing signs of intoxication?
No, not at all. I can clarify that we've not had any previous concerns, and it is based on an assumption, but it kind of also comes down to the fact that because Mr. Pooney is the applicant and not the holder of the event, we can't really get much more information to satisfy our concerns. So, and I accept that the protection of children from harm is not something we can discuss. However, it would be, in the wider sense, part of crime and disorder as well, which is why it's been mentioned in my objection.
I mean, I agree with you, and I think we all have to, in society, accept that we're all responsible for playing our part in safeguarding. So thank you for bringing that to our attention.
Chair, you may want to ask, in terms of the paperwork that's been handed in, there's evidence of door staff being employed. Can you clarify whether door staff were present on the previous incidents and whether that changes the police's stance in this application if door staff are present at the upcoming event?
So did you get the gist of that? Yeah. Okay, Gemma?
I did, yes, thank you. Just to clarify, we were not aware of any door supervisors being present. That information hasn't been passed to us at any of the events I've mentioned. I'm not saying they weren't, just that no information has been passed to us. I would have assumed that the event where the arrest happened may have not got to that stage had security been present. But the other issue with that is, as this is a temporary event notice, we can't enforce that action. It can be offered up, and obviously because it is a temporary event notice, this is supposed to be deemed as a low-level event. So I appreciate they're putting door supervisors on, but if they choose not to at the final hour, we can't enforce that. And you would also argue for a temporary event notice, why would you then need them? So they're just some points I'd like to put out there. But yeah, in answer to your question, I'm not aware that there were any, and it wouldn't change my opinion on this particular objection.
Excuse me, Chair, if I could come in there, please, as well. Just from my experience from the previous meetings, I can say that on those original temporary event notices, going back, there weren't door supervision in place, because we spoke about that at the meeting that I've had with Mr. Pooney, and as a responsible DPS, he's looking at implementing that going forward, which is something that we could only agree with.
Thanks for that. Yep.
Chair, the only other question that you might want to ask for clarification is, can the police describe what the makeup of the local area is in terms of the proximity of residential dwellings and how many there are?
Yeah, what's the context of the location in terms of social issues?
Obviously, it will come down to my sort of personal perspective of it. I would say it's a highly residential area, and there are residential premises very close to the Indian Community Centre. And if you refer to the incidents that are submitted, I think there was an incident reported from a local resident who described the area as, I think they've said mainly people over the age of 50, and the informant themselves said that they suffered from ill health, so this was having an impact on them because of those reasons. So I hope that answers, I would say, very residential.
So we everybody's had a chance to ask questions of the police. So we've had a chance to questions. So we now go to the applicant to present the application and respond to the relevant representations raised.
Thank you, Chair. And I'm sorry about the first time I had the meeting, so I'm a bit sort of nervous and all that. I apologise for the incident on the 11th or 12th of that, and I've been there since 2015, and we had few 10 before, and no problem, because we are present there till now. I'll be present at 9 o'clock, then I go, and then the committee member and the chair comes in at 12, and then everything quiet, and they go, and nothing happens till the 11th or 12th. Since then, we've been concerned, and then we employed the security guard immediately, because we cannot be there, cannot control crowd. We can phone the police and all that to control crowd. We employed 3 people. We thought that'd be enough sort of for the number of people attending the meetings. And that's why I pass on the receipts that we paid, that we had employed them. And that was the first thing, since, to my knowledge, they commenced operations in 2003, but I only took over 2015. I've been told there was nothing happened before that, till this incident. And on these 10 events, we do not supply alcohol, beer or anything. It's owned, supplied by the organizer itself. And there's no sale of alcohol on that time, on the events. And we do not open the bar for them. And the only time the bar is open is when there's other parties till 11 o'clock in the evenings or half 10. And then that is not coming the 10 anyway. So. And then we have a noise control panel in the bar, which is locked. And if there's too much noise from the musical end, they will shut off the supply other than the lighting. And the people can go about, then there will be no music after. Then somebody has to come from outside, switch off and switch the system back on. And any noise outside into the car park, that's why we employed these security guards to control it. But we don't have any sort of a control on outside on the road. People go, I understand, they will be noisy and they go on the road, and there are people living there. I understand that as well. And there was a not objection, but a proposed condition from the police during the meetings. The one was the retraining of staff, which we have 2 staff, they're both license holder, and they do not come in anyway till we have a other meeting, bar meeting. But for the 10, they are not employed because we don't serve beer. And the challenge notice, we have displayed them, and we have a record of book that we few serving people. We don't serve beer anyway, so we still have the book of that. And the other one was CCTV. We had for 1 week, but now the hard drives on order. We will have a 28-day recording as requested by the police. And no, it's going to be then the security. And we are trying to work with the police, and we didn't have a meeting because we had a meeting last week. Then we're going to put these conditions or get put onto our license as requested, and then we will go ahead from there. Still sincerely apologize for the night on the 11th and 12th of the September, and obviously we weren't there. We didn't have any opportunity before. So now we have security guards there, and we come in there as well. Thanks, sir. Thank you.
Have our councillors any questions for the applicant?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Pooney. Could you explain the 4 licensing objectives to the committee, please?
It's quite a few things, but it's the control of people in the building itself, for the alcohol consumption, noise and behavior, and children's safeguard and everything. And then we have a 20 event notice, and we talk to the people who apply for that, and then we come in, have ourselves have our presence. I'll come there until 9 o'clock, then I go, and then the chair of the building site, of the building, and a couple of members with them, they stay there till 12. And now security guards come in 9 o'clock anyway, and they will be looking around to see if any events happening which shouldn't be happening due to the license. And
Thank you, Mr. Pooney. So you've heard from the police about the incident that you rightly said what you said about on the 11th and 12th. How do you feel about the impact on the local community from that incident? What's your view on that?
Well, I'm very, very sorry, but because it didn't happen before, and we didn't expect it to happen either. It was just something which I can't explain why it happened, but now, since it happened, now we had to do something about it, and then that's why we employed the security guards from 9 o'clock, and then there were there 3 of them, and if any incident happens, they can control it because they have the authority to control crowds. From there, we took all these steps from advice from the police, and we go ahead with the extra conditions.
Thank you, Mr. Pooney. So, the event on the 11th and the 12th, it seemed quite clear that though there was no alcohol being sold at the time of the temporary notice was on, there was alcohol freely available. Strong liquor on bottles on tables, such like. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
So the temporary notice that you're applying for today on the 5th, for the 5th of November, can you just confirm to the committee, would there be bottles of alcohol in a similar vein of strong liquor between the hours of 11 and 3 a.m. the next morning?
Yes, it's indicated on the application form that we will not open the bar, but the people who organize the party, they will supply their own. Yes.
But would you believe that would be bottles of strong spirits, things that could make you very intoxicated on the premises? Would you agree with that?
Yes, but that's why we have the security guards there to control the crowd. There will be beer and there will be alcohol, and people will consume, but that's why we employ the security guards to keep it. Because we didn't have security guards before, and we didn't think that it could happen, but it has happened now, so we had to do something, and we are willing to more advice on the police. What else can we do?
Just for the committee's benefit, could you talk us through what the baby christening celebration would entail? What kind of activities would be happening between 11 and potentially 3 o'clock in the morning? Just so we understand what kind of activities are planned. Will you be in attendance? Will any representatives of the Indian Community Centre be in attendance? What kind of things will be going on? Could you just give us a flavour of the event?
Flavour of the event is that some of them will come in early. The kitchen will be open for them, and they will cook their own food, whatever they have, they're going to have. Then the party will start, say, about 6 o'clock, youngsters and all that, and Indian Community Centre committee rep will be there, but the security guards won't start till 9 o'clock. They will have beer. To me, if I not use the wrong word, English or English Christian is sort of different to these East European, or they use that like Indians use it as in having a party. If that's the analogy I can say, there will be drinks and they'll be give people enjoy themselves. And it's not simple going to church and getting the priest or the father to christen the baby and having a wine. But am I?
Mr. Pooney, the Indian Community Centre on Rawdon Street has a licence till around about 11 p.m. I understand, just for this Friday. You know, normal opening hours till 11 o'clock.
Yes.
What's so significant about the 3 a.m. requirement that you've requested it? You know, is that something that that has to be done? You know, why does it have to go on past 11 o'clock? You know, as we've already discussed about the impact of a previous regrettable incident. But what's the significance about 3 o'clock? Does it have to be 3 a.m. in the morning?
It's the people who apply or book the community centre for their event, and they request that time. We have our own time till, as you say, 11 o'clock or clearing by 12 o'clock in the evening. and 11 o'clock on Sunday or bank holidays. Whereas the people who book the community centre for their parties or christening or wedding, they request 3 o'clock.
So there's no particular reason, it's just what the people that are hiring out
request,
want.
we ask for it, and then if we get it, it's nice, but
Councillor Peatfield, have you any questions?
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Pooney, do you know how many people would be attending this event on the 5th of November? The total amount that would be in the community centre? Are you aware if there are any children attending? And obviously, I know that it's not on the application form or anything. I'm just wondering if you are aware. And also, with it being the 5th of November, will there be any fireworks?
right. But the fireworks, I do not have, I didn't ask any question on that. I assume there won't be any. I assume I can inquire on that. 2, there will be children. As it's a Christian party, the kids will come in earlier on in the evening. What I see and I believe that some of these people come to the party early and they go, like a 6 o'clock start, they could probably go 8, 9 o'clock. Then the elders or grown-ups, so they come in later on for the later half. And then this is sort of, it comes in that way. They will not come all together in sort of 400, 500, 600. Maximum, I think, is about 250 they book it for, and with the security guard, they will keep it at 250.
Are you saying that the maximum capacity of the building is
No,
250, or the maximum people attending this particular event is 250?
Indian community centre capacity is higher, but they ask for 250, and they limit it in sense, some come in, some go in, and at one time they will be under 250, and they will not be more.
And what is the capacity of the community centre, please?
I believe it's 500.
500, thank you.
Because that is when they have a Punjabi or Indian or Asian weddings, that's well they have it's not seating. When the seating arrangement, this is less, so table and chair, but if we standing around, moving around, and this 500.
I'd just like to go through now the whole way that you set up these things where you have a bar but you don't open it.
Not for 10, no.
You don't, but you could use the bar.
No.
You
Shutters are down, locked, noise control panels are behind it.
Yeah, but you choose not to open the bar.
Yes.
Yeah. And people are invited to, or allowed to bring along their own alcohol.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, I think we could all accept that the reason for these disturbances was the fact that some of the people at the party, quite a lot maybe, were severely under the influence of alcohol. If you opened a bar, you could kind of control that. If that was the only alcohol available in the setting and they weren't allowed to bring their own, it wasn't freely available on tables, there'd be some control about how much somebody consumed, because, you know, bars shouldn't be serving alcohol to people who are already drunk, for example. Whereas if you just say, bring along what you like and get on with it, there is more likelihood that that will lead to severe intoxication and over a long period of time as well. Do you have any view on that?
Yes. I think if either we can supply alcohol to them over the bar, then we can limit, as you said, because, and the other is they will be leaving early from there. Because we know, and I need to go and discuss that with the committee that I put that forward. That sounds a nice idea to me to implement. I agree with the chair.
Have you any questions?
Chair, just a couple of questions that you might want to raise. You might want to clarify what kind of music is being played, because looking at the existing licence, there's a difference between recorded music, which can currently be played till midnight, and live performance music, which can be played till 11 o'clock. You might want to clarify what kind of music is being played.
Thank you. Did you hear that? I mean, I won't repeat what's been said if you're clear what you've been asked. Yeah.
Generally, it's recorded music and the stage behind there from there, and that's where everything is controlled from the noise panel anyway, so there is no live singing or wandering around.
Chair, in light of that, you might want to inquire what precautions are going to be put in place in order to control noise levels past midnight.
Yes, Chair, the music control inside we already got in place a noise control panel, which limits it to whatever it's set to. And then once it goes over, it switches off, and then there's no music, no power, no nothing, just purely lighting on that point. And the other noise which is people noise, that's why we've got security guards for that to sort it out.
And am I wrong in the assumption that at an event somebody decided among the guests to put the system back on when it should have been off?
Sorry, sir. Sorry, I didn't hear that.
Hadn't there been a situation where the community centre had stopped the music being played after the time it should be, but then someone among the people who were there decided to switch it back on?
No, the control panel is locked behind the bar. The shutters are down, doors locked, and the control panel somebody else come out and reset the power room anyway, so it switches off the power set.
Thanks for clarifying that.
Yeah, thank you.
Chair, the only other question that you might want to ask is in relation to the invoices. They're for previous events. Has any invoice or inquiries been made about door staff for the event on the 5th, if it were to go ahead? How many door staff, and over what hours will they be employed and present?
Thank you. Thank you. The security staff is a properly trained, it's SIA staff anyway, because we can't control anything ourselves. So we employ professionals. And we had a meeting with police, and they came and talked to the police. Then they seemed to be okay at them. And what else? What else? Sorry.
So, is it envisaged that there will be security people there on the event that's been called into question?
Yes, we employed them immediately after the 11th and 12th incident, and we thought it was prudent to do that. Otherwise, we cannot upset the local community anyway, because we're going to be living there. They were employed before we had a meeting with the police anyway. And they came to the meeting with the police, and they were present.
Chair, how many door staff will be present, and over what period of time will they be there? What hours will they be there?
So can you be more specific about how many and how long they'll be there, etc.?
We are there from in the afternoon and the evening. The security staff start 9 o'clock till 4 o'clock. Then 4 in the morning. If the event the 10 goes on, and if we have future events going on anyway, they employ the 10 finishes 3 and the security staff finishes at 4. And they are there. At the moment, we employ 3 staff at the moment.
Could you just clarify that they have been booked and paid for the 5th of November?
They will be booked as per...
they will be?
If we get the okay, they'll come on. If they don't, we're not going to pay them because they're not cheap.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So at the previous event, the gate was locked to the premises. Will the gate be locked on the 5th if the event went ahead?
So if the event was what?
So at the previous event where there was a 10-person brawl, the gates were locked. Would the gates be locked again on the 5th if the event went ahead?
The security guard will control the gates, and if they feel fit to lock the gates or the people come in and out, because that is the main entrance to people, party goers coming and going, and with the vehicles and all that. They'll be the responsibility of the 3 security guards, or main the gate and main the doors. And
sorry, I've not got great hearing either. So can you just clarify, will the gate be locked between 11 and 3 a.m. if it was to go ahead on Friday?
No.
One of the things that you said after previous questions about the door staff is you don't have control of what goes off.
No, what I've said was I, as an individual or a committee member or normal person, cannot control as long as the security guard can control it. My authority doesn't extend that far. I am still owner. I can look at it. I can phone the police. Well, then that's why we went for the security guards, that they got more power and more authority to control crowds.
Yeah, so my question is would there be anyone from your committee or any representative or even yourself as the applicant, will you be having any form of involvement on the event on Friday and into Saturday morning, or would you just leave that to the host and the security guards?
I'm normally coming early in the evening. After me, say 8:30, 9, chair of the Indian Community Centre and 2 committee members come with him, and at that time the security guards will be there as well. So possibly the chair and the committee members go about 12, depending on the situation. Normally we went at 12, because nothing was happening, they were very quiet. After this 10, 11 event, now we have to employ security guard to control it, and we'll be there till 12 o'clock. And if that's phone call from the security guard, then we'll come back again.
Thank you, Chair. Could you clarify then who will be locking up on the morning of the 4th of the 11th at 3 a.m?
The security guards.
The security guards. Okay, thank you.
Is there anything you'd like to say in addition to anything in response to questions?
Only because I read in the news yesterday that we were not cooperative, like this a news reader or caster, whatever they're saying. We were in touch with the police and email going forward. That's why I collected and I submitted to you that we have been in touch with the police to have a meeting to clarify and their proposed Annex 2 to the condition to put them on. And we are willing to do what we need to do. And plus, if the 10 isn't agreed, I mean, temporary event notice isn't agreed, and there's nothing we can do, and we can go ahead with it. And, yeah.
Thank you.
Chair. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, everybody.
We've heard now submissions from both parties, and we now come to the point where each party will sum up, and we'll start with the licensing officer.
Thank you, Chair. All I would like to say is we've heard from Derbyshire Constabulary and the notifier, Mr Pooney, and I would just like to remind committee that the options open to you this afternoon are to uphold the objection notice received and serve a counter notice on the notifying individual, impose one or more of the existing licence conditions on the temporary event notice, or reject the objection notice. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And now I call upon our police officer to sum up.
Thank you, and I'm going to keep this very brief, as we've heard a lot of information. It is still the opinion of the police that we're not satisfied that there's enough control in place at a very late night event. This has become apparent because of a previous incident. To highlight the point, a temporary event notice is a light touch approach and would be perceived low risk. Something going on until 0300 hours of the morning, I would say, is a heightened risk. And the only way we can really be satisfied is either having a premises licence with conditions or having some conditions that we can attach to a temporary event notice, which was not an option for us in this case. I just need to clarify a point that there was a meeting arranged with PC Fowler which didn't go ahead. However, the date of that meeting was actually the day after the last representation date for this 10, so we didn't really have any other option apart from to object to it. So it would still be my opinion that I respectfully ask that this temporary event notice is rejected. I do not dispute that Mr Pooney is working with us. This is an ongoing process which will continue out of this room, but unfortunately with this incident we're still not satisfied that it'll be promoted. Thank you.
And finally, would you like to now sum up your presentation?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. And all I can say is that I'm willing to cooperate with the police, and whatever they say, we will do, and we'll take it from there. And if they are not happy with that control through the 5th, okay, we wait. And other than that, and we want to improve and we want everybody to have a good time. And plus, we need these events to fund our community centre, which is not just for these 10 events. It is, I don't need to say, it's a lot more goes on in there. Probably you are aware more than I do with what goes on there. With the old ladies, old gents coming in, old communities coming in, police, everybody else. All I can say is I will cooperate with the police and we'll take it from there. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, everyone.
So, thank you, everyone. We've now come to the conclusion of the hearing in the sense that we now will adjourn to make our decision. Maybe it would be best if you, Jackie, explain what will happen after that.
Thank you, Chair. We'll retire now and let panel make their decision, which will be sent to you by email within 7 working days, I believe, Anne. Sorry.
The decision has to be made with a clear 24 hours before the start of the event. So we've got to have it over to the notifier by 11 p.m. tomorrow.
Apologies, that will be sent over back to you by 11 a.m. tomorrow. But for now, we'll just adjourn the meeting and let panel make their decision. Thank you.
So thank you, everyone, and thank you for your openness and frankness in terms of the conduction of the meeting. Thank you.